Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creative Mind Coaching and our lovely Soul Saturday session. So glad to be here. How are you, Rob?
Good. I'm doing pretty good,
Yeah.
considering.
It's June gloom here in LA, so it's kind of hazy out. It feels like it's going to rain, but it never rains here, so it's kind of
Yeah,
an odd phenomenon.
I like those colors on you. It's
Oh, thank you.
really beautiful.
Thank you.
Brings out the color of your eyes.
Oh, it does? Okay. Multicolor. And I love the black on you. It brings out the darkness of your soul.
I was wear black.
I know you look great in black. So today we're talking about the question and trying to answer the question, is life meant to be difficult?
Yeah. Which is really the old question in philosophy is why do we have suffering in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to suffer?
And I remember when I was first starting out, Buddha used to say life is suffering, and I'd be like, why? But if you think about it, most of our life, if we think about our mind, is constantly feeling dissatisfied. Most people are always in that one, the next thing, when this happens, then I'll be happy. When this happens, then I'll be happy. It's that kind of constant craving of dissatisfaction, and it never is as good as we expect it to be. And then the past is always better than what it was. We look back and have nostalgia over the past, and we don't appreciate it while it's here. So there's so much about life and difficulty. And I know a lot of people seek personal development because they feel that, they're having a difficulty with dealing with life. And that's really what this work is about not just trying to get the goodies, but how do we deal with life in general? How do we deal with the things in life that we can't avoid?
Yeah, well, when you and I met, I was studying Buddhism at that time. And what struck me was that in the beginning, when you hear the four noble truths, the first one is that life is suffering. And a lot of people stop there because they say, that's very pessimistic. I want something uplifting. I want a promise of eternal life or something. But they miss the point. It's simply the starting point. Essentially, Buddhism and all of the Eastern philosophies are very positive in that they say there is a way out of suffering. They're simply starting at that point to make the point that we suffer in this world, right? But it's not like the heavy, dramatic suffering that we think about.
Like carrying the cross to bear, and
suffer. I guess it is a spectrum from from mild discomfort or dissatisfaction, like you were saying, dissatisfaction with life, all the way to physical pain and intense loss and grieving.
Because we have to deal with the body, which has physical challenges and health issues, and some of us deal with severe stuff, and then other times we have to deal with death, and then we also have to deal with our heartaches, and other people and love, and so why is life difficult?
I think if we boil it down to what does psychology say, what does philosophy say, what do the poets say of why we suffer, it has to do with misperception. We misread the world in that we think something external to us is going to make us happy. Right? It's the old idea, if I line it up on the right side, if I get the job and I get the relationship and I get the health and everything down the line,
and the money, and there's enough money in the bank,
yes, I'll be happy. Right? That's the basic underlying unspoken assumption that we all make, and that we're all taught, that if you line these things up, you should be happy or successful and all that stuff, well adjusted. But we see that from very early on, we see that those things don't really make us happy. Not that we shouldn't go after them. Of course, we need to be prosperous and and successful and have relationships, but they're not the anchor for us to be happy.
I always feel like if we really look at it, it's a temporary, these things give us a temporary relief from our suffering. You know, it's like this suffering mind, and it's like these like joyful things that happen give us this temporary relief from it. But then we go back to the default of, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, and all those things that our ego tells ourselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, in most spiritual traditions, the idea is that the happiness, salvation, nirvana, enlightenment has to come from within your mind. If you can't find it in your mind and you're searching for it externally, that is the major cause of suffering. You searching for something in the wrong place, right? It's the old joke of the guy's looking for his keys outside under the light in the lamp, and they ask him, what are you looking for? My keys. But did you lose them here, or where did you last see them? No, they were inside the house. Why are you looking out here? It's because there's more light out here. So it's kind of that principle. There appears to be more light out there, right?
More happiness out there, somewhere to be attained than inside of us.
That's right. And so we're looking
important.
Yeah, we're looking in the wrong place.
Well, even they always say like ice cream. You think the happiness is in the ice cream, but if you're lactose intolerant or vegan, the happiness is not in that ice cream because it's milk, or it can upset your stomach. So the ice cream inherently doesn't have that quality of happiness. It's that the mind says, when I eat this, it tastes good, and that brings me happiness. So for some people, they eat it and it can cause misery because now you have to go on the treadmill for 20 minutes to burn off it, or you feel guilty so we always think that this one thing out there is going to have happiness contained in it, but it also, if it has happiness contained in it, it also has the ability to make us suffer.
That's a good point, because the world operates on that dualistic principle.
Yes.
It contains its opposite. Anything that makes us happy makes us sad as well, or its
like
absence.
Lover, someone who could bring love into your life, right?
Yeah.
And they could break our heart.
Yes, that's right. That seems to be part of the deal. That if you want the love that comes with a relationship, you have to accept the possibility of getting your heart broken.
And so why do we have this suffering? Why are we designed biologically to crave happiness externally? Like what's the purpose of that?
Yeah. I think in recent years there's been a big kind of explosion in what's called evolutionary psychology. So evolutionary psychology simply means that we look at the principles of evolution, adaptation, natural selection, to understand why we are designed the way we're designed. If you think about the way our senses are designed, it works really well to have a system of moving towards pleasure and moving away from discomfort or pain, because essentially an organism can operate based on those game principles
and survive.
Yeah, if it simply moves towards what's pleasurable, what gives it comfort, food, shelter, and stays away from the painful stuff, predators and dangerous situations, it will survive and reproduce.
So it's kind of like the foundation or the lowest level of operating system for human beings, and any animal, like any one cell organism will operate under that. So so we know why we suffer is because we crave the pleasant externally, and then we believe what is external also is causing us pain as well, or the lack of what we see, or something in our mind says this is wrong or improper, or that person looked at me the wrong way, or that person left me, so I must be, that's the cause of my suffering. And that if we're always in that place of looking for just the pleasure, we end up being a slave to the external world.
Very much so. It's the conditioning factor. The reason the environment is able to condition us, operant conditioning, is based on this principle that every action you take gives you a certain result. And based on that mechanism of, is this pleasurable or is this painful, it leaves a conditioning imprint on you. Therefore, it's molding your behavior, shaping your behavior continuously. Luckily for us, there are ways to transcend this, and a lot of, say, the Eastern philosophies, especially the Upanishads, they specifically target this idea that if we're designed this way, there must be a way to transcend that,
or else this would be a very cruel universe to be in. Right. To be trapped in this kind of impossible puzzle. Because we're born and we're going to eventually die, which we're afraid of anyway. So why would we have this? What's the purpose of it anyway? If that's all we're doing is chasing pleasure our whole life.
Yes.
And avoiding pain.
That's right.
And then feeling that when we're in pain, we can't enjoy life. Like I remember when I was single, I remember thinking, all the years I wasted being unhappy in my life, my younger years, because I was alone. And I kept thinking, I can't be happy until I meet my partner. And then I look back at all the incredible experiences I had, all the places I've been, the people I've met. I worked in the entertainment industry. I met famous people. I, was backstage on, huge concerts, and what an incredible experience. And I couldn't enjoy it because in my mind was telling me, you're still alone. You're not a part of the normal world. You're this lonely girl. And it was really, I look back, I'm like, can I do this over? And so that's really what suffering can do. This idea of difficulty can cause us to miss out on life because we feel like one day everything's going to play out for us. And then that first magical man is going to make everything better.
Yeah. That's a good example of kind of the idea of this perfect romantic relationship that's going to save us,
or the perfect job, or
we have it for all these things, right? The perfect lifestyle, situation, etc.
And the image we used for this class was the image of Sisyphus, which is Sisyphus, which was the idea that this guy had to roll the ball. There was this big boulder up the mountain, and then it would just roll back down again. And that's kind of how life is. There's never a place where it's set. It's constantly emotion.
Yes. And, for entrepreneurs, for people that really step out of their comfort zone and try to do something different, or even let's say in love, where you have to step out of your ego. You have to go beyond that principle of comfort and safety, seeking for yourself. You have to think of another person. All those situations kind of force us to face that challenge of what is beyond this kind of pleasure principle that keeps me in the hamster wheel. And it's scary because you're entering something beyond the duality.
Beyond that foundational human existence of survival. You're going for something with more meaning and purpose.
Yes. And it can crush us, absolutely. But if you notice, the odds have to be real in order for you to really seek out something deeper in you. Than just the external pleasure principle.
So in a way, difficult situations or difficult experiences, what we perceive as difficult, are really an invitation for us to take on something else. Like for me, like I always talk about my homeless, manless, and jobless. I lost my job, broke my engagement, had to move out of my home all in the same month. And it really made me, all the external was taken away and I had to go inward. And the difficulty of that situation forced me to ask myself, what do I want to do with my life? And if that never happened, I probably would have just gotten married to someone who wasn't my ideal, stayed in a job that wasn't my ideal. And so we kind of judge things as difficult, but we don't realize that the difficulty is really the doorway, and it's more of a step up. Like I always think of like the steps. They hit a wall, and then you have to kind of climb up to get to the next level. And so when we hit that, instead of thinking it's a dead end, we think, no, this is where I climb to the next level. And so approaching difficulty in that way. So how do we do that though? How do we transcend it? And you talk about, you were going to tell a story.
Yeah, I wanted to tell the story of this woman named Tilly Grosser. So she lived in Vienna I guess she was born early 1900s. So she became a young woman in the 20s and 30s in Vienna. And of course, at that time, Freud was there, Adler, all the great psychologists were working at that time. And she worked in one of the psychiatric clinics, the Rothschild Institute clinic, I think. Anyway, she met this guy named Viktor, and they fell in love. And right the year they got married, the country was annexed by Germany. World War II was about to explode, or was already taking place. And they got pregnant, but they forced her to abort because of the anti-Semitism at that time. The state did not allow Jews to have children.
Oh, wow.
And she and her husband and their parents ended up getting transferred into the ghetto and then shipped off into concentration camps, where she died at the ripe age of 24. That kind of, given our current circumstances, we can see that those kind of circumstances are not out of our reach. In other words,
what's happening now in our world is there's actual concentration camps in different parts of the world still.
That's true. And that societies can descend into that kind of mentality, right? Of
darkness.
Hate and but the reason I want to tell her story is because she ended up inspiring her husband, who was Viktor Frankl. They got separated when they went off to the concentration camps, and he didn't know if she was alive or not. And in his despair, in his going through this very dark night of the soul, and
horrible condition,
terrible conditions, a lot of people dying around him, a lot of kind of the darkest aspects of humanity playing out right in front of him, and he was in the middle of it. He had this vision of Tilly, of her face and her smile, and the love that they had together, and it inspired him to survive. It just gave him that strength to pull through the hardest times of his life in that moment. And of course, he went on to survive the concentration camps, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning, which became a worldwide phenomena. And he lived, Viktor Frankl lived way into his into the 90s. I think he died in 1997.
Wow.
Taught at the University of Vienna and lectured all over the world. And he always mentioned this incredible experience that he had about the love that he had for this woman, and how it really saved him in the darkest hour.
And so that's how we can transcend difficulty. I mean, our difficulties probably don't match. Maybe some people, out there have had difficult, real tough life growing up, and maybe they're dealing with it right now, with racism and all this stuff that's going on. But what can we do? Instead of fighting, when the external feels that it's coming at you, you're saying that the love that we can cultivate in our own heart and our own mind can get us through anything.
That's definitely one of them, and Viktor Frankl talks about this. He says there's a couple of things that we can do to create meaning or to cultivate that meaning in our lives. In essence, the meaning is already there. It's within us, but we have to actively bring it forth, cultivate it, grow it. So he says definitely that connection that we have with another human being and the love that we have for each other is a deep source of inspiration, of meaning for us. The other one, he says, is having that sense that your life has a purpose, that you're making a difference in the world. And
a purpose that's you're contributing to the world.
Absolutely.
So you're as like helping others or serving others in a way, like not a selfish need, but actually contributing to something bigger than yourself.
Yes. And we all have the beginnings of that in our work. Anytime you work, you're essentially cultivating something for the world.
If you think about it, even, when we went to the Buddhist Center, and we think about all the people that are here to support us, and they had us kind of look at all the people that take care of us. If you think about now, all the workers that are stocking the shelves, working in factories, preparing food for people, driving buses, making sure the electricity stays on, working, behind the scenes to make sure the internet's running, the connections and the satellites, and the people that take care of the children, the teachers, all of us. It's not just a job. It's like we're contributing to the whole. Like we all have a way that we're supporting other people.
Absolutely.
And I don't think many people think they're working for money, but they don't realize how sacred it is. Someone who cleans your house, or someone who, dry cleans your clothes, or makes the clothes that you wear. I mean, there's all these things that we do for each other. I mean, we couldn't do this alone, and we need each other.
Yes.
And so finding our unique purpose to express our unique talents that we're contributing to the world would be a way out of suffering. Is that there's a meaning to what we do?
Yeah, it's let's say it's on the path to transcending it. I don't think we want to or are able to escape suffering or get rid of it completely. Yes. It's essentially what gives life meaning. If you think, let's say in terms of our life, what really causes, let's say, everyone's suffering is illness, aging, and death, like the Buddhists say. Those things are universal. Nobody escapes those.
And we all think that we watch our Facebook feed and think that everyone else has a perfect life, but not me. My life is really screwed up, but look at Mary. She's like in, traveling, or she bought this beautiful home, or, my cousin has, just had a new baby and I don't have a child. And, we kind of comparisonitis we have with everyone else, and everyone's putting up kind of their persona of what they think their life is. Every once in a while there's people that post their suffering online, but we tend to compare our insides to people's outsides all the time. That we're left out. That's how I felt even when I was single. I felt like I got left behind because I didn't have that love. And so everyone else gets to have it. Everyone gets to the marriage and the babies and the picket fence. And I, for somehow, am cursed that I couldn't have it. And so it caused, I think it was probably, and I know some people that I work with have that same feeling. It like whatever you want in life that you feel like is not what you need, it can cause incredible suffering, incredible suffering. And you think this love and this desire for love should be an adventure, but it turned out to be this torturous thing. The same thing with business. I see a lot of people that want to create money and wealth and be entrepreneurs, especially now. People are getting laid off, and we're seeing a lot of people say, I want to start my own business now. I'm ready. And the process of them starting their business, it's like they're bringing suffering with them. Instead of thinking of it as this incredible opportunity, it's like, I'll be happy when I finally make it. So I'm just going to suffer now and work really hard. And then one day, it's like everything that we do with the work we do, we have to put love and passion and meaning into it along the way. If we don't, the suffering will still be like a carrot 5 feet in front of us that we never get.
Yeah, it definitely goes back to that idea of if we start with a misperception, and the misperception is essentially the root of our suffering, then let's say correcting that misperception is at the root of our transcendence of it. We're not going to get rid of those limitations of aging, sickness, and death, but we're able to come to terms with it and use them for meaning making, right? For inspiration, for creativity, for cultivating that love for each other. And that's really the way we as humans transcend that and are able then to connect to the divine part of us, those higher elements, instead of just the basic, like you were saying, that animal nature of moving towards pleasure and trying to escape pain.
It's more short term, that kind of pleasure, right?
That's right. It's just temporary.
Yeah.
Very
it's
temporary.
just like a quick in front of me. I'm going to get that hit.
Yeah.
That's where addictions start, from that kind of short term versus long term. And we have an ego. I always tell everyone that the only problem we have in life, the only suffering we have, is that we think we're the ego. We think we're this little tiny little insignificant person in this big world, and we don't realize that we're so connected to it all, and that we're grand beings, and we if you look in life, a lot of you are all into personal development, so you're woke, as they say, and you look at parts of your family or friends, and you're just like, or people you work with, and you're just kind of clueless to life. They're kind of in that short term, getting to the weekend every week, making paycheck to paycheck, and they're not really inspired with life. And so you doing this work or being open to this kind of conversation, you're already ahead of most of the population. And actually, we are the forefront of a transcendent experience on Earth for all of humanity. I mean, we are the force of change in the world. And so those of us who are aware of these things and are dedicated to going beyond the survival mechanism, we are going to make the world a better place.
Yes, and that leads us to kind of that conclusion that if we do our work, our personal transformation work, we are doing a work that is meaningful in the world, that is meaningful in the world, and that connects us to each other in a deeper way. Instead of, let's say, just externalizing and thinking, well, the problems are out there and they're too big, I can't do anything about them. We bring it back to, no, I can always work with my own mind, with my own emotions, and work at transcending this. So I didn't mention the last principle that Frankl talks about, which is experiencing truth, beauty, and love.
Oh, I like that.
And truth and beauty.
Are you talking about me?
Just kidding. That's right. It's given to all of us. But we have to seek it out. We have to cultivate it and bring it out into this higher awareness. It's in the world. I mean, if well, the nature is just full of beauty. That's right. Yeah. Not a few years ago, there was this idea of biophilia, which means the love of the biology of nature, right? The beauty of nature. It's an instinct in us. We're happiest when we're connected to nature. We're connected to each other. And our psyche, really the way Jung understood it, was that it's part of nature. It is our nature. When we connect with it, we're happiest. We find that natural happiness and beauty and love and all that stuff. So, yeah. So how do we start to begin to these three? So first is to understand that we decide what happiness is. It's happening inside of our mind, and it's prejudiced by our past experience,
by culturally what we're taught is happiness, by our family, by our past experience, what happiness is, what pleasant is. And we're kind of bound by that in the beginning. And so we have to realize, okay, this is how I was conditioned, but there's a way out. We can find happiness. We can define happiness. And for me, I think what really helped, it's kind of like a Jedi mind trick, where when something difficult does arise, you can actually reinterpret it as this is an opportunity versus this is a terrible thing that I want to get away from. And by doing that, you're actually breaking free of that pre-packaged, preconditioned judgment of things are only good when I'm in the flow and things are flowing. And I always say, when you're struggling, that's where you can find the truth. That's where you really are searching within. Like back to the manless, jobless, and homeless. Everything external was taken away. I had to go inward. And me going inward made me discover what I really wanted to do with my life, what kind of relationship I wanted to be in, and where happiness is. And I really found it in the moment. I was like in this kind of place where there's no future, there's no past. All I have is now, and I want to make the best of now. And it really was an incredible experience for me, where my friends were saying, wow, I can't believe you went through that. Such a difficult time. And it's like, it was what I needed to go through. It's sometimes when we're going on the wrong path, a block or obstacle shows up because it's redirecting us. It's saying, wait, you're getting caught up here. This is not leading you to happiness. And we have to trust in our deeper self that these obstacles were placed there by our higher intelligence to help us really find the happiness. The lasting happiness is that no matter what happens, we can have joy. A long time ago, someone mentioned this, and it was really a great metaphor, is that the hurricane of life, and you can always be in that eye, the eye of the hurricane is always the most peaceful, calm place. And instead of trying to control the storm, just be in the eye. And that's really where happiness can come from. And that's where really you can create, like people that want to put vision boards up and create their life. You can't create in panic while you're running away from something you fear. You can only create when you're in that, find the love within and find that source within.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. What else were you going to say?
Yeah, I think that sums it up, is that we have to look inside instead of always searching for the external to satisfy us or to find happiness in there. So
what would be a good next step for people as far as where do they start to do this?
I'm a firm believer in starting where you're at. There's no need to make drastic changes. No, you don't have to run off to Tibet or India or anything like that. Look around you, look at the challenges that are facing you today, and ask yourself, what is this showing me about my mind? Why have I created this? Why has this come up? In facing those challenges, we find our path.
A good question would be, why is this external event making me unhappy? Just examining it, going into the feeling that it's pulling. And, I always think, like, why is this making me unhappy? And why am I resisting this? Why am I giving this so much meaning? So, for example, my archetype is the mother. And so she's always trying to please, and we can all relate to that, some of you. And when someone's unhappy with me, I get triggered because that's just my default. And so I'm much better at it now that I'm more woke from it. But I would examine it and going, why does this bother me first? And you're just kind of opening it up instead of being like, I got to fix it. The default would be, I got to fix it. I got to make that person like me again. That's kind of what we want to do. But to stop and say, well, why is this making me unhappy? And I would ask myself, why does that person's opinion of me decide for me? And why am I so resistant to people not liking me? And it's just like this, you really see how it's been controlling your life. And I call it like an emotional detox. You're kind of like opening up this emotion that's so fixed and responsive and reactive. And you're starting to say, wait a minute, this suffering isn't necessary. It's optional. I'm the one who's creating it. That person, whatever they did or is mad at me, that's their suffering. That's their problem. I have to work with what is pulling in me. And I think we end up in relationships trying to fix other people's opinions of ourselves, trying to get someone to think good of us. And if we don't think good of us, it's always just going to be a reflection. So that's what we're really working with, is our own mind, our own mirror of what's happening. And I find that first step is asking yourself, why is this making me unhappy? And so just assuming it is really a great question.
Yeah. And so much of it is really cultivating a trust in our own true nature. Because we externalize so much and we think happiness is outside of us, we're giving away our power. And really the process is about bringing it back to understanding that, no, I have the power of creating this life, and of trusting in your own ideas, in your own emotions, in your intuitions, in your dreams, everything. The key is always that trust, that confidence in your own true nature.
Not your ego, but the deeper nature.
Well, the ego is turned outward. You said it perfectly. The ego is essentially designed to help us read the external world. And so when you're operating from ego, you're operating under the external principle. When you're operating from the internal one, it's the higher self, that you're trusting that you are the source, not the external.
And if you trust that, things do turn around. If you buy into the fears that we all do, we've all been conditioned to do that. You buy into those fears, and then all of a sudden we're lost and caught up in it. It's like getting caught up in a rushing river, those whitewater rafting, and you go under and the water just takes you away. That's kind of our emotional life. Our template is there conditionally to just drag us along. And we feel like life is dragging us along and we can't grab onto anything solid. That's most of us. That's the experience of the ego. But there is a way, like out of suffering, as the Buddhists say. Life is suffering, but there's a way out. And we still have to deal. Like, I think this whole, like when The Secret came out, like 20 years ago now, I remember thinking, oh, it's like this magical thing that we could just think positive and then our life will be perfect. And it was very misleading because it doesn't really tell you the whole truth. It's like, yeah, your thoughts create your life, but you're still going to have to deal with an ego. You're going to have to deal with unconscious. You're still going to have to deal with conditioning and all those things that these great forces that keep us in our stuck place and human nature. And it takes effort. It's not just about, visualizing some outcome that's,
Well, if you notice, a lot of the philosophy they expound there is that the things that you get, that you manifest, are going to make you happy.
Yes.
It's the same idea. It was just clothed in different vocabulary, but it was the same idea. The external will make you happy.
And most of people believe it. And we all do. We all fall into that. We have to check ourselves when we get too excited of things going well. And I think for us, we've reached a level of success that I never thought I would reach as a, little girl from New Jersey. And what keeps us in check is that we're not doing it for the success. We're doing it because it's our purpose. And whether we're really successful or moderately successful, it doesn't matter as long as we keep doing our purpose, as long as we find joy in sharing what we find inspiring. That's for us, that we're already successful. We can make more material success if we want to. We can love each other more if we want to, but it's already coming from that place of we're already perfect. We're just not complete. And that's the life. Vivekananda said that, Swami Vivekananda. He said, life will be happy when you realize that it's perfect, but not complete. There's a perfection, but it's not complete. It's like, I always use the idea of the tree. The tree is a tree when it's a seed. The tree is a tree when it's a little seedling. The tree is a tree when it's 6 feet tall and then 8 feet tall. it's just not complete. But I mean, it's not, it's incomplete. It's still growing. And if we can know our life right now, right here is absolutely perfect. And it doesn't mean that we're complacent, but it's perfect and it's incomplete. That our life is still an unfolding story. It's like Game of Thrones. You don't want it to be over. You want it to keep going. So it's that kind of feeling of it's perfect, but it's incomplete. And that I feel that will take you out of suffering immediately, even if it's the biggest challenge, a breakup. People email me like, this came up in my life and how do I deal with this? And to see it's an opportunity. We always say that to our clients. And we can't help it. That's how we were born. So we have to deal with it in the beginning. And then the end of the life, after 30, we start to become ourselves. So great questions. Thank you all for joining us. A deep conversation as always on a Saturday. The Church of Debbie and Rob, a soul session. If you are listening to the replay, feel free to post your questions. We have the mentors in the group to help you, and I will be here too. And we hope to see you. Those of you who are single, we're going to be doing our live series in our other sister group that's up temporarily for love, only focused on love. If you're interested, let us know. Just post, I need info on that, and one of the mentors will send you the info and get you in the other group and get the meditation and the 3 video series we're doing next week called Love for the Awakening Soul. So great segue for that wonderful new program that we're doing. So thank you all. And remember that you are all perfect and you don't want your life to be complete yet. There's so much more to live, and you already have everything you need inside of you to create what you want and create happiness and joy. And what we want to do is just keep building on it, building on that happiness. There's more joy and more love that isn't completely experienced yet to have.
That's right.
So take care, and we will talk to you next week.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Much love.
Bye.